Today, we're going to steam this beautiful piece of red snapper in the oven, in a bag, in its own juices, using some classic Cantonese flavors. Let's do it. First up, we lightly season the fish with some salt. This will help the fish draw out any excess moisture, if any, while we prep the other ingredients. Now, like any good Chinese steamed fish, we prepare our ginger and scallion. You can and should do this with a spoon. I just like to do this for the camera. Relatively thin strips. We'll use it during the cooking and use the other half as garnish. Scallion. For this particular recipe, mostly the white parts. And we slice them more for garnish later, for our makeshift scallion oil. Now, normally you would stop there, but having read a few cookbooks from the 80s and 70s, there used to be two types of Cantonese steamed fish, the one with the stuff and the one without the stuff. So the popular version of the ginger scallion in modern day restaurants, that's without the stuff. What is the stuff? Well, it normally consists of some dry mushrooms and some Chinese ham. Of course, Chinese ham is hard to come by outside of China. So today, we're using some maple smoked bacon, which adds a lovely smokiness and a bit of sweetness. For this recipe, the treatment of the bacon is more important than the quality of the pork. So if the shopping permits, go for something that's sweet and slightly smoky. And here we have some dry shiitake I've soaked earlier. We're saving the liquid for later, but for that we squeeze out the liquid. And we slice them thin. So why on papillote with the stuff? Well, most of the time when you steam with ginger and scallion, you ought to, or at least you're encouraged to, discard the fish liquid and have a fresh round of soy sauce and scallion oil, which is incredibly tasty. But it makes the whole bagging and unbagging very troublesome. The version with the stuff, which we're currently slicing, you're encouraged to keep the liquid, because that's where the flavor goes. Smoked ham, wonderful umami of the ham, of the mushroom, and sometimes they even add chicken breast, bamboo shoot. And once again, the recipe is a guideline. Once you've made this once, try it with different things, see what you like. So, almost equal part. I like shiitake, so a bit more of shiitake. And to this, we add some Shaoxing wine. If you don't have access to Shaoxing wine, use dry sherry. If you don't have dry sherry, use dry vermouth. Just don't use white wine because we're not looking for acidity. We're looking for some depth of flavor and a bit of umami. To that, we're going to add a bit of cornstarch. This is the genius of this dish. Normally, when you cook something in a bag, you have to pre-introduce a bit of liquid before the heat could squeeze out the moisture from the fish itself, which makes the handling and the bagging difficult. With the help of the cornstarch, we are practically introducing liquid, but not in liquid form. The moment this hits some heat, it would release and start the steaming process. And of course, we're going to add a bit of the soaking liquid for extra umami. And you top up with enough cornstarch to get to the point you can no longer see any liquid. Perfect. Now, time for the bag job. Now, for this particular recipe, whether you use parchment paper or tin foil, wouldn't make much of a difference. But if you're making on papillote with anything acidic, the acidity would bring out the metallic taste from the foil, and you would be better off using parchment paper. Now, how you want to do your origami is a personal choice, but if you're solving for minimizing the escape of steam, you want to minimize the number of seams. And to do that, very simple, we fold it in half and we make a half circle. This way you have one continuous seam, reducing the risk of having a weak side, because this will be either equally strong or equally weak. Brilliant. Now, form a small bed of ginger and scallion, and given the oven temperature, these will be extremely tasty. Beautiful red snapper goes on top. You can use any fish for this recipe, by the way. Now, another round, ginger and scallion on top. In our family, there's never enough scallion, so be generous. And the umami bomb and the source of liquid. And as it's steamed, the bacon fat will render down, further flavoring the fish. Fold, and you start by folding very tiny triangles, bit by bit. You want enough space to contain steam, but you don't want too much space. Kind of like premium economy class. Perfect. Now we'll grab a tray. top. Now, this beauty goes into a preheated oven, 190 Celsius, for about 15 minutes. Now the fish is almost ready. We prepare a very quick makeshift scallion oil plus soy sauce for steamed fish. Hot saucepan, high smoke point neutral oil, in this case vegetable oil, and the reserved scallion whites, they go in. Yes, it's really badass to pour hot oil over the fish, but not when there's a bag full of liquid. So we use my mother's cheat. Just 30 seconds, stove off, and we add a bit of soy sauce. Bit of Maillard reaction, soy protein and the sugar. Brilliant, set this aside. After 15 minutes, fish comes out. And you want to give it about 2 to 3 minutes to rest, so the carryover cooking could bring the thickest part over the line. You're aiming for about 60 degrees Celsius for the perfect flake. Now, transfer this beauty directly to our serving plate. Very carefully, you open the back. You want to make a tiny incision just for the steam to be able to escape, and then you can go. Look at that. Oh, so beautiful. Now, we add beautiful scallion oil. Top. And that's it. Red snapper on papillote with the stuff.